Welcome back, guys. Today we will see the story of the movie The Unholy, which is written and directed by Evan Spiliotopoulos, and it has an IMDb rating of 5 out of 10. So without further delay, let's begin.
So the movie starts with a scene dated back at 1845 where a woman, nailed with mask on her face, was burned and hung on an old oak tree.
Now the scene shifted to present day in Boston. Here we can see a man named Gary Fern, a disgraced journalist who would do fake news for money. He got work to cover news for $150 in Benfield about a cow where some Satanists perform rituals. But it turns out to be prank. Just then a church father, Father Hagen, told cow's owner to move from that field as it belongs to church property. Soon enough, Gary heard some whispers from a dead tree, and it is the same tree where we can see in the first scene, where a woman got burned and hanged.
As Gary approached the tree, he found one old creepy doll wrapped in old cloth and chained with an unusual date, February 31st, 1845. Gary thought of making an interesting news, so he crushed the doll with his leg.
Now, as he was returning back to Boston at night, suddenly a girl appeared in front of his car. Seeing that, he crashed his car into the woods. Gary followed the girl, which leads to the same field. There, Gary saw the same girl kneeling before the tree as if she was talking to the tree. Now, as he approached towards the girl, he heard the girl saying, "I promise I will." And when he touched her, she fell unconscious. Gary took her to the Father Hagen, and here we came to know the name of the girl is Alice Paget, and Father Hagen was her uncle, and she lives with him. Now, Dr. Natalie Gates came to check up on Alice, and Gary was shocked to know that she couldn't speak or hear. Gary told Dr. Gates about what he saw in the field, but Dr. Gates refused to believe him and told him he was drunk. Now, Gary took leave from Dr. Gates to a nearby motel, and she left from there. In the next scene, Gary told his agent about the news regarding deaf and mute girl, and that he will cover it. Now, Gary went inside the church, and inside the church everyone was present. Suddenly, Alice went out from the church to the same field in front of the dead tree. Meanwhile, Gary was recording everything. Suddenly, Alice spoke and told everyone to come again tomorrow on that same spot, and told it was Mother Mary who told her, and everyone present there was in shock. Now, Dr. Gates examined Alice, and she turned out to be perfectly fine. Now, Gary called his ex-boss Monica and told her about the news, and she declined him, saying never to call her back. On that same night, Gary saw a dream where we can see a river stream with a house nearby, and out from the stream a ghostly figure appeared who almost looked like Mother Mary, and Gary woke up suddenly. In the next scene, we can see lots of people gathering in front of the church, seeking miracles from Alice. Now, Alice appeared and went directly to the same spot in front of the dead tree. Now, Alice tried to heal a boy named Toby Walsh, who can't walk, and commanded him to walk in the name of Mary. And suddenly, the boy started walking. Gary was capturing every moment, and everyone in there was in awe and praised Mary. After that, movie camera shifted to Mother Mary's statue, and we can see blood flowing from its eyes. Now the news went viral about the miracle of Alice Paget. The bishop of the church held a press conference meeting regarding the miracles that had happened, and told everyone to make it a shrine, whereas the Vatican has sent Monsignor Delgado to investigate whether the miracle is true or not. In the next scene, Alice appeared in front of the press, where she seemed to be confused with all the questions. But when Gary asked her, she replied comfortably. Later, Gary, Bishop, and Delgado were discussing about covering the story of Alice, as she answered only to Gary. Knowing how bad reputation Gary has as a journalist, Bishop Gael gave permission to cover the story. In the next scene, Father Hagen went to the same place in front of the dead tree where it was getting prepared for making a shrine. Now, Father Hagen happened to step on the same broken doll and was observing it. Suddenly, a ghostly figure of Mary appeared and was just about to attack, but it got interfered by workers and Father Hagen left from there. In the next scene, we can see Gary taking interview of Alice. Gary asked Alice why Mary chose her. Alice told she prayed to Mary so much and she heard her prayer, and Alice welcomed Mary in her life. Alice further added that once people used to hear from Gary, but now no one cares about him. Gary asked her how did she knew about it. Alice replied, Mary told her and also told to spread her words to the whole world. The interview was interfered by Father Hagen and told Gary he don't like him taking interview of Alice. Gary tried to confront Father Hagen, but he told when God builds a church, the devil builds a chapel next door to corrupt our faith. When Gary went to Mortal, he felt someone was behind him, and when he turned back, there wasn't anyone. Next day, Gary went to church, where we can see Father Hagen teaching song to Alice. Suddenly, Father Hagen had a heart attack and Alice tried to heal Father Hagen, and it worked. Suddenly, Father Hagen saw a dark spirit behind Alice, and this terrified Father Hagen. In the next scene, we can see Dr. Gates comparing the X-ray of Father Hagen before and after, and it seems he was cured completely. Now Bishop and Delgarde believed that it was a miracle. Now the shrine was declared in Banfield, and some people in Banfield seemed to be happy and some seemed to move away from there, thinking bad things could come. The economy of the Banfield grew drastically. Now Monica, Gary's ex-boss, called him regarding story of Alice to cover for the channel. Gary told her on one condition, if she promote him. Monica has no other option than to accept his condition. In the next morning, Alice was leaving Father Hagen to live in diocese, which she don't want to go, but Gary confronted her as it was for her own good and gave her song CD as a gift. In the next scene, we can see Father Hagen was smoking in one room, and suddenly the smoke of cigarette seems to divert towards the wall. And on inspections, Father Hagen found one old book inside the wall, and the book was written more about satanic rituals. Now the scene shifted to a restaurant where Gary met Dr. Gates. She asked Gary how did he came across Alice. Now Gary told her that while covering a news with one farmer, he came across a Kern baby doll with unusual date engraved on it. Dr. Gates told Kern baby are used for good luck and also trap bad spirits with impossible date. Now Gary was confused and didn't tell her the whole story. Later that evening, they went for a walk nearby a river stream. Gary was shocked to see the same place which he saw in his dream. He told Dr. Gates something has happened there, and it was connected to the church. In the next scene, we can see Father Hagen intense inside the church. He saw someone entering the confession booth. Seeing that, Father Hagen also went inside the confession booth and told to confess, but it was a dark spirit and attacked Father Hagen. When Gary came inside the church, he found Father Hagen hanging. Bishop told Gary not to disclose this matter to public, as it could hamper the reputation of Banfield. In the next scene, we can see Gary taking interview of Alice in diocese. As Alice was set on sudden demise on Father Hagen, Gary thought of dropping the interview, but Alice insists on carrying out the interview. While interviewing, Alice told that Mary said not to doubt as it weakened faith. After the interview, Gary went to motel, and again Gary felt someone was behind him, and when he turned back, he saw someone for a few seconds and disappeared. On reaching inside his room, he checked the interview video and he found something odd. When Alice was talking about Mary, something appeared in thin air near Alice, and as Gary kept staring at the screen, he saw a scary face and got scared. Next day, during the funeral of Father Hagen, Gary met Dr. Gates and asked her where the church records are kept. They both went behind the church to look for the old records. Inside the room, there were many statues covered with white clothes. Meanwhile, Gary found a book which Father Hagen had found inside the wall. They found out about a woman named Mary Elner who used to practice witchcraft and claimed to be Satan's bride. Mary Elner used to perform miracles, and she also claimed she can see Mary and was speaking through her. In return, she would claim their soul, and those who opposed her met tragic ends. When the town people heard about her, she was captured and submerged her in the icy stream, and she confessed about her works. And as a punishment, a mask was nailed onto Mary's face, signifying Blessed Virgin Mary image, and was hanged and burned by an ancient oak tree, and her soul was contained inside a current baby doll. After her death, her miracles would disappear. Meanwhile, Alice got a call from Mary Elner during the funeral and told everyone to hold a feast and to celebrate the shrine that night. Now, Gary came to know the truth how Father Hagen died. It was Mary Elner and was imposing as Virgin Mary. Now, Gary felt one of the statues covered with cloth was moving, and when he checked, it was a normal statue. But suddenly Mary Elner attacked Gary and Dr. Gates. They somehow managed to escape and came to tell the truth to Alice, but they couldn't, as Alice moved out with Delgarde escaping the press. Soon, Gary and Dr. Gates went archdiocese to meet with Bishop and Delgarde and told it was Mary Elner. Bishop knew about the history of Mary Elner. Hearing that, Delgarde was angry because he wasn't informed about it. Bishop denied the fact that Father Hagen was killed by Mary Elner. At that moment, Gary came to know about the service that would be held that night for the shrine. Gary told not to do the service, as she will claim all their souls. Gary left from there telling Bishop he would stop Mary Elner. Meanwhile, Dr. Gates couldn't meet with Alice. Gary went in Diocese Archive Library and he found out that Alice was Mary Elner's descendant with same bloodline, and also found out that she would live through her children. Suddenly, the phone got disconnected and Gary was attacked by Mary Elner. Soon, Monsignor Delgarde came and saved Gary. Gary told Delgarde about Alice everything, and they both went out to stop the service. On the other side, Bishop told security to stop Gary if they happened to see him. Now, Gary, Dr. Gates, and Delgarde went inside the church. Delgarde told them Mary will perform mockery of the Holy Trinity and she would pledge them to be faithful 3 times. On 3rd time, she would claim their souls. Now, they took the same baby current doll to contain Mary's soul again. At that moment, Gary confessed that he broke that doll. Now, as Delgarde tried to seal with holy fire, the matchstick got blown off, and on 3rd time, fire caught at the cross. That burnt cross collapsed over Delgarde, killing him. Gary and Dr. Gates ran out of the church.
They thought of an idea to stop Mary by creating doubt in people's mind. While the service was led by Bishop, Alice came and told them Mary is here, and asked them to pray to her and pledge to be faithful.
Alice seemed to be possessed by Mary Elner while she was speaking at that moment. Dr. Gates and Gary came and told the crowd it was all a lie. Dr. Gates told Alice that Mary was deceiving her, and Gary told that all the miracles were false and created doubt in everyone's mind. Gary also exposed Bishop for hiding how Father Hagen died inside the church. Soon, Alice realized about the false Mary and took side with the Gary. Suddenly, the oak tree started burning. Out from the fire, Mary Elner appeared and revealed her real face to Bishop and killed him. Alice and Gary tried to escape from there, but Mary Elner stopped them, hurting Gary. As Mary Elner was trying to kill Gary, Alice came in between and took the attack, which led banishing Mary Elner for eternal. Now, Alice was alive, as she sacrificed herself for Gary and lost her voice and hearing. All the miracles came back relapsing. In the last scene, we can see Gary, Dr. Gates, and Alice visiting Father Hagen's grave, and Gary told Dr. Gates that Alice wasn't breathing at all, and Dr. Gates told him maybe God is present all this time. And that's how the movie concluded. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked, give a big thumbs up and please don't forget to subscribe. And for more videos update, press the bell icon.